The trash bin was right there at the edge of the dining table, the one nobody uses, the one my aunt keeps for napkins and wrappers. My sister picked up my painting from the display corner, where I had quietly placed it an hour earlier. She held it up like evidence. "Everybody look," she said. "Elena brought her art again." The laughter started before she even dropped it. And she did drop it, right into that bin, like it weighed nothing. My mother didn't even flinch. I crossed the room, reached in and took it back. "Nobody pays for this stuff," my sister said to the room, not even looking at me. My phone started ringing. She kept talking. I answered. "Is this the artist we've been trying to reach?" "My name is Elena Marsh. I'm 31 years old. I paint murals. I teach art 3 days a week at a community center 2 bus rides from my apartment, and for most of my adult life I have been the family disappointment. Not in the dramatic way people sometimes describe, not the kind where everyone is screaming, the quiet kind. The kind where your achievements get a polite nod while your sister's promotion gets a dinner celebration with the good plates out. The kind where your mother introduces you at gatherings by saying, "And this is Elena, she does her art," like it's a habit she's waiting for me to grow out of. My sister Renee is 3 years older than me. She works in finance. She owns her home, drives a car that doesn't make noise when it starts, and every holiday she shows up with expensive wine and everyone hugs her like she just returned from war. She is the practical one. She is the responsible one. She is the one who made the right choices. I was the other one. I kept eviction notices in a folder in my kitchen drawer so I could see exactly what I was up against. Rent was never easy. Some months I had it. Some months I was negotiating with my landlord using leftover pride and a payment plan. I never told anyone in my family. If I told them, it would have confirmed everything they already believed about me. That the art wasn't working. That I should have been more like Renee. But I painted every single night. Not because I was chasing something romantic. Because it was the only place where I wasn't behind. When I was painting, I wasn't late on rent or riding 2 buses or being managed down by people who thought they understood my life. I was exactly where I needed to be. I wasn't rich or glamorous, but I had something they didn't expect, and I was still here. If you've ever had someone in your family treat your dream like a joke, like something embarrassing that needs to be kept out of sight, then you already know what I'm about to tell you. I want to ask you something honestly. Has anyone who was supposed to love you ever made you feel small for wanting something they didn't understand? If that's you, this story is for you. This channel exists because these stories are real and they happen to real people, and sometimes the only place we can say it out loud is here. If you're new, subscribe now, because what we talk about here is what happens when people underestimate someone who has been quietly working the whole time. Hit the like button right now if you have ever been underestimated by the people closest to you. Let's keep going. This isn't a revenge story. It's something more important than that. It's about what happens when people misjudge a silence they never bothered to understand. Here's something you need to know about that gathering. I had planned it carefully. I wasn't there to make a scene. There was a woman named Diana, a contact from a local gallery, who I had invited quietly. She was interested in seeing my larger mural work in person. I had one piece I'd been working on for 6 months, a canvas I thought was the strongest thing I'd ever made. I brought it. I set it in the corner before anyone arrived. I didn't announce it. I didn't put a price tag on it. I just wanted Diana to see it in a natural setting. Renee found it within 20 minutes. What she said wasn't just an insult. It was calculated. She knew Diana was there. She had overheard me mention it on the phone the week before. The way she picked that canvas up, the pause she held before lifting it over the bin, she wasn't just being cruel. She was performing. She said I embarrassed the family by turning every gathering into a gallery showing. She said I needed to grow up. She said she was tired of watching me pretend that my hobby was a career. And then she dropped it. Diana quietly excused herself and left. My phone rang 10 minutes later, while I was still standing there with that stained canvas against my chest. I answered it. A man named Raymond Holt introduced himself as the acquisitions director for a commercial licensing firm. He said they had found my online portfolio through a curator referral. He said they had a campaign launching in 8 months, and they wanted to license my work for the full national rollout. He used the words seven-figure deal. I didn't say anything for about 4 seconds. Then I said, "I'll call you back tomorrow." I didn't tell anyone in that room. I put my phone back in my pocket, picked up my painting, and went home. The first move came 5 days later. Someone had talked. I don't know who told who or how the details got out, but by the time my aunt called to check and the story had already changed shape. Suddenly, Renee had a version of events where she had always been supportive, where her comments at the gathering were just tough love, where she had always believed in me, she just wanted me to take it seriously. She called me and said, "I always said you had talent, Elena. You just needed the right push." I didn't respond to that. Then the family started grouping. My mother called suggesting that Renee would be helpful in the negotiations because she understood contracts and business and money in ways that I didn't. She said it gently, like she was doing me a favor. She said Renee could protect me from being taken advantage of. I told my mother I would think about it. 2 days later, I found out that Renee had already contacted Raymond Holt's office directly. She had sent an email introducing herself as my manager and primary representative. She had asked for details on the offer structure and commission terms. She had positioned herself to take a cut of a deal she had nothing to do with, from a career she had thrown into a trash bin 6 days earlier. Raymond's assistant forwarded me the thread. I read it 3 times. Something changed in me that day. Not anger exactly. Clarity, the kind that settles cold and quiet and makes everything still. I stopped wanting their approval. Completely. Not slowly, not partially, just done. I made an appointment with an intellectual property attorney the next morning. I documented everything. Every email. Every voicemail. Every message where a family member tried to insert themselves into a deal they had no legal standing in. The family kept pushing, certain that I would fold the way I always had. That was the thing about them. They had a long history of being right about that. I had folded before. I had backed down. I had let myself be redirected and managed and minimized for years because some part of me wanted to belong to them more than I wanted to protect myself. That part was gone now. What they didn't know was that I had been hiding something bigger than a single painting. For 4 years, I had been selling work under a different name, not to hide from anyone specifically. It had started as an experiment, a way to see if my work could stand without my name or my story attached to it. I used a pseudonym, kept the social profiles minimal, let the work do everything. It did more than I expected. The pieces sold. Then they sold well. Then they started appearing in private collections and interior design projects, and one corporate lobby in Chicago that I had seen photographed in 3 separate architecture publications. The people who bought the work didn't know Elena Marsh. They knew the name I'd chosen, and they kept coming back. Raymond Holt's company hadn't found me through my mural work the way I let everyone assume. They had traced the pseudonym back to me through the curator referral. The campaign they wanted wasn't for one new piece. It was to license the entire existing body of work from a name that had been quietly gaining serious traction in the market for years. I had a plan they never saw coming. While my family was busy trying to figure out how to attach themselves to what they thought was a lucky break, I was sitting on something they hadn't even asked about. I let them think it was luck. The person who helped me hold it together during those weeks was a woman named Estelle. Estelle had owned a gallery on the east side of the city for 22 years. She was the first person who had ever offered me a solo show, back when I was 23 and still using student-grade paint because I couldn't afford anything better. She hadn't done it to be kind. She had done it because she said she saw a vocabulary in my work that she hadn't seen before. I had stayed close to her ever since. When I told Estelle what Renee had done with the email, she didn't react the way I expected. She didn't get angry on my behalf. She got quiet and focused. She said, "Good, you have it in writing." She helped me compile everything into a formal document package with my attorney. The sisters' emails, the family voicemails suggesting Renee be included in negotiations, the timeline of events, all of it organized and dated. She also told me not to confront anyone privately. She said that private confrontations give people room to rewrite the story. She said if I was going to show people who I was and what I had built, I should do it somewhere they couldn't edit the narrative afterward. The gallery launch for the licensing partnership was being planned as a public event. Press, collectors, industry contacts. Estelle said, "Let it happen there." My family had no idea what was actually being announced. They assumed it was a signing celebration for a new deal. They were already planning how to be photographed beside me. They were walking toward something they thought was their moment. The gallery was full by the time I arrived. Renee was already there. She had worn a structured blazer and heels, and she was speaking to two people near the entrance like she belonged in the inner circle. I watched her from across the room. She looked confident. She looked like someone who believed the night was already decided. When the event's host moved toward the center of the room to begin remarks, Renee positioned herself close to where I was standing. Not beside me like a sister, beside me like a partner, like someone who was about to share something. She even touched my arm and said quietly, "I'm proud of you. You know that, right?" I said nothing. Raymond Holt stepped forward and introduced the partnership to the room. He talked about the campaign, the scope, the national reach. He talked about the creative vision that had driven the selection process. Then he said they hadn't been looking for a new artist. They had been looking for a specific one, a name that had become known quietly in serious collecting circles over the past 4 years. An anonymous artist whose consistent body of work had been tracked and admired long before this deal came together. He said the name. It wasn't Elena Marsh. It was the pseudonym I had worked under for 4 years. And then he said the two were the same person. The room shifted. I could hear it, a change in the air and the sound and the energy. Renee's hand dropped from my arm. A third party, a colleague of Estelle's who had been involved in the documentation, stood and addressed the room directly. She explained, briefly and clearly, that an unauthorized attempt had been made to represent the artist in this transaction without legal standing. She said the documentation of that attempt was part of the formal record now. She didn't say Renee's name. She didn't need to. The emails had already been shared with the relevant parties. Everyone in the industry who needed to know already knew. Renee stood completely still. My mother, who had come with her, looked at the floor. I didn't make a speech. I didn't stand at the front of the room and list the years and the moments and the quiet cruelties. I didn't want to, not because I was being gracious in some performed way, but because I genuinely didn't need it. I signed the contract. I thanked Estelle and Raymond and the people who had been part of building something with me in silence for 4 years. And then I left. I didn't go home with my family. I didn't take calls that night. I let the silence do what it was supposed to do. Renee tried to reach me twice over the following week. She was embarrassed. She had explanations. I understood that, and I chose not to engage with any of it. The family had to sit with what had happened. They had to look at 4 years of quiet work and realize they had never once asked about it. They had to understand that while they were managing their image of me as the irresponsible one, I had been building something real that they hadn't even been watching. The real win was not the deal. I want to be clear about that. The money mattered and the recognition mattered. But the real win was the morning after the launch when I woke up and realized I didn't have a single thought about whether they approved. Not one. I was Elena Marsh. I was 31 years old. I was the artist whose work had traveled further than anyone in my family had ever asked about. And the painting they threw in the trash was now hanging in my gallery, grease stains still visible in the lower corner. Framed, lit properly. The caption beside it said, "First." Sometimes the thing they throw away becomes the proof they were wrong. I want to ask you something before you go. Has anyone ever treated your talent like it was embarrassing? like it was something that needed to be contained or apologized for. Drop it in the comments. Tell me the moment when someone dismissed what you were building. And then tell me, if you have one, the moment when you proved them wrong. Subscribe to this channel because we are building something here. Story by story. Every week there is someone who was written off and came back with receipts. That's what we're about. Hit the like button if you've ever been underestimated. Share this with someone who is in the quiet phase right now, the part before anyone is watching, the part where it's just them and the work. They need to hear this story. Click hype and help it reach them. Here is the thing about being underestimated that nobody talks about. It creates a kind of freedom. When people stop taking you seriously, they stop watching you carefully. They stop tracking what you're doing. They assume the outcome and move on. And in that space, in all that room they cleared by walking away, you can build something without anyone trying to steer it. Elena didn't win because she out-argued her family. She won because she stopped waiting for their permission and kept building anyway, quietly, consistently, without an audience. If you are in that quiet phase right now, keep going. The people who dismissed you are not watching. Use that. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. And if this story hit something real for you, hit hype and help it reach the person who needs it most. We'll see you in the next one.